Jiva Corja, Kehi Wilship. Hello, everybody. Eimear, sorry about the intro. I don't know what was happening there. Some gremlins, as often accompany me here in this magical place of Three Castles. You're all very, very welcome to this Fireside Chat. And this is Fireside Chat 210, brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. And as is customary, I begin with the prayer for peace. Gomara Siacán fud na crinne, Gomara Siacán in our jaili agus in our jirha. Gunairi lin arcuid garmacha, Gamwich buicus jeev, jeha chivdaka, spirit chivdaka. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail in our homes and in our countries. May our missions be accomplished. We thank you, guardian spirits and guardian deities. For peace. As the fever of day comes towards twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost. That we might see through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. That those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters. That the wolf might lie down with the lamb, that our swords be beaten into ploughshares, and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the holy mountain, with thanks to John O'Donoghue. So, let me see where people are from. I see Lloyd is from New Zealand, and Liz from Wyoming, lovely, and Nimi, lovely to see you all. I'm wondering, full moon blessings, yes, there was a beautiful full moon last night. From PA, where's that? Pennsylvania? I'm not so sure. Anyway, Suffolk, lovely to see you. And Calgary, a strong hug from Carla in Italy, lovely. Just beautiful. And Berlin, hi Morgan, lovely. You got back safely from the Bardic Gorset, lovely. Susan from Northamptonshire, beautiful. Saoirse, hi Saoirse, lovely. From the West, beautiful. And then there's another Morgan. It must be the second Morgan, or is it Morgan 1 or 2? Oh, yes, it's Morgan number 1. Lovely to see you from the Vale of Glamorgan. Brilliant. Just lovely to see you. And Hickory Smoked Barbecue from Calgary. Oh, that's Sean. Lovely. Karasu from Indiana. Max Brown. Okay, lovely. Watching from Scotland. Beautiful, beautiful. So I don't know what the weather is like in Scotland. It's been warm again here. It's cloudy, but the sky is blue and our temperatures have gone round to 20 or 21 degrees Celsius, which is quite cool compared to what we had last week, but it's still lovely. So anyway, just lovely to see you all. And South Dakota, brilliant. So we are in Ireland today. We're going to Kinsale. So I'd like to introduce you to my guest this evening, Paddy Doyle. So, wait a second, I made a mistake there. Yeah. So, Paddy, you're so welcome.
Thanks very much, Eimear. Nice to see you here. Yeah.
So, just tell our viewers where you are.
I'm in Kinsale in Cork, in Ireland, County Cork on the south coast. Kinsale is a harbour town, a seaside town. It's a beautiful spot. So I'm in my room in Kinsale after getting off a boat. So. Okay. So. Yeah.
What's your room and what boat were you on? Or did you get off?
I was just on my friend's boat. We went out for a spin. He has a little sailing boat. My room is, it's my office. It's a treatment room. I do some healing work here. So this is my space, my sacred space, I suppose. I work from here. And sometimes I don't work from here, but I spend a lot of time here. Yeah.
So what kind of healing do you do?
I do elemental healing is what I call it. I suppose it's a version of shamanic healing really, but it's my own take on it, I suppose, and it's kind of more rooted in our own native tradition. So I call it elemental healing. So I work with the elements and the guides and the spirits of the land.
Beautiful.
The ancestors, all our friends, trying to bring balance and restore balance. Yeah, and I work a lot with story as well. Work a lot with story, getting people to tell their story and see where their story might have gone wrong, where the story of their soul might have gone wrong. Sickness came in and trying to find a new way to rewrite that story along different lines. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, there are a lot of comments on your fox.
Excellent. Yeah. I said it. It's my my beautiful partner, you know.
That's beautiful,
My beautiful
beautiful,
assistant.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Lovely. So now, of course, you don't live in which I know you live in Bandon. So what's the difference between Bandon and Kinsale in terms of like why have you
I don't
chosen
live in
to?
Bandon. I don't live in Bandon. I live actually in the parish of Kinsale. I live halfway between Kinsale and
Ah,
Bandon.
okay,
I live on the Bandon River. So but I live in the parish
okay.
of Kinsale. So like Bandon and Kinsale are like the two wings of my bird, you know. They're very
Ah,
different
okay.
towns. Very different towns. Yeah. One is a harbour town. One is a port town. Kinsale was the busiest harbour in the south of Ireland for hundreds of years. You know, it's actually the main harbour in the south of Ireland. It was much more busier than Cork. Cork only came into Cork harbour only came into prominence in the 1800s. Really, you know, Kinsale was the harbour for hundreds of years. You know,
Wow.
yeah. So it has all that history. All that history. The Battle of Kinsale was fought here. You know, Spanish Armada. And you have the beautiful Bandon River, and it's a double harbour. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous harbour. Very sheltered. Very, yeah. It's a gorgeous place. Yeah.
And of course, the Irish is Cinntála. So what does mean? Cinn is head. So what does the Tála mean? The sailing? Or
No,
Harsolia, the head of
I mean
fishes?
the head of the willows, the
Oh,
Salia, or else it can,
okay.
but it can also mean the head of the sea or the head of the brine. It's, you
Yeah,
know,
because Harsolia is over the sea. Okay, very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Love that.
yeah, yeah. And
So
Bandon, on
did
the
you?
other hand, Bandon is a very different town. It's an inland town. It's isn't it? Yeah, they're different towns. You know, they're different towns, and they've changed over the years. Kinsale in the 70s and the 80s it's a fishing town. It's a fishing
Okay.
town, Kinsale, so it's a very working man's fishing. It was a very working man's fishing town, and there was a big barracks here as well. There's always been Charles Fort, and there's always been a large. It was a barracks here until the 70s. So sailors and soldiers, you know.
Okay.
It brings a particular shade to a town, so it was always a kind of a fun town, Kinsale, you know. In the 70s and the 80s, it was kind of when the fishing industry started to fade away. It got very run down and very derelict, and in the last 20 years, it's become a yacht town. It's turned around again, you know. Where Bandon on the other side, but on the other hand, it's only 50 miles away. But it's Bandon was the main town in West Cork for forever. It was the business town, still is the business town, you know. It was the gateway to West Cork. It's an interesting town. It was one of the only towns in Ireland that was specifically built. It was built there during the Munster plantations on that point in the bend of the Bandon, you know. It was a made town. It was a planted town, where the other towns kind of grew up organically. This was a planted town. And it's so that's that energy is still there. It's interesting, you know. It's a very colonized town, really, in many ways, you know. It was the first really stamp of plantation, so that it carries that history as well, you know. Yeah,
Wow. Beautiful.
yeah. It's interesting. Very different towns. Yeah, yeah. Van is
Wow.
very Protestant town, very austere.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a bit more well a seed. This opens out much more, you know. Yeah, yeah. I like them both. They're great towns, you know. Good friends of mine. Yeah, they've been good to me.
I had a work colleague who was colleague from Bandon, and she said even the pigs are Protestant in Bandon. That was that saying.
I was the same. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
really interesting how two towns can just take on two different
yeah,
personalities,
yeah,
determined by the
yeah.
history and the landscape, of course. With the sea,
The
you
history and the
have that
landscape, like, yeah,
openness.
yeah, exactly.
And,
Yeah. Although Kinsale has always been a very English town as well. You know, it's never really considered during the British Empire. It never really considered itself an Irish town. You know, because it was a port town for England, really, and it was really connected with places like Bristol and stuff. You know, there's always been a huge English garrisons here as well, and people living here, and the trade. There's always been huge trade,
yeah.
you know, and Kinsale was always quite wealthy because of the transatlantic trade, you know. So it always had huge allegiance to the British Empire, really, you know. So this part of Cork is an interesting place, you know. You move into West Cork, then it's Michael Collins' country, just 20 miles down the road. You know, it's interesting, these geographies. You know,
And now,
in
yeah.
1913, no, 1910, there was in 1910 there was 13 Orange Lodges in Bandon. That's
Oh
interesting, isn't
my
it?
God, 13.
It's only 100 years ago. 13 Orange Lodges, yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's, wow. That's
yeah.
a very
It's deep
unionist
history, you
town.
know. Yeah, it's complex, nuanced, very nuanced histories, like, you know, in small areas, like, yeah, yeah.
Um, and Kinsale now, I always associate it with, what do you call it? The planting. It's not eco planting. It's I've
Permaculture.
seen them all. Permaculture.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know people
permaculture.
who've
Yeah,
done permaculture courses and,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it kind of really opened up there in the early noughties. The permaculture college opened up, like, so it was the first permaculture course in the world in Europe, I think. So it brought a lot of
wow.
people from Europe to study permaculture, and there was a whole eco building thing happened here. It's why I'm here, really. Like, I'm here on that wave. So it's an interesting town, Kinsale. It's got the old school town, the fishermen and the local people, and then you had this whole influx of kind of artisans and permaculture people and all that kind of alternatives, more eco style. And then you also have a huge yachting scene, really, you know what I mean? It's a yachting town as well. So there's many layers and they all kind of coexist, And also now, because it's so close to Cork, it's become really desirable place to live, really, you know what I mean? There's a lot of farming money and, it's just an interesting place. Like, it's a mix.
Wow.
But
And of course,
it took me a long time. It took me a long time. I was here 10 years before. I could never really put my finger on Kinsale, what's Kinsale. I could never really understand it, I couldn't. And I think about this stuff a lot, And then I'm from Kilkenny, so I'm coming from a landlocked county, do you know what I mean? And then about 5 years ago, I took a job working the harbour, on the harbour, the boat one summer, So I started working boats. And I remember the first day I was out to sea and I came into Kinsale Harbour, then it all made sense. Kinsale only makes sense when you come in off the sea. You can see it all and it makes sense, It's funny with those port towns, half of them are actually out on the other half's the harbour, You can't see it clearly until you see it off the sea. Like, this all made sense. Yeah.
Wow. Because I was going to say yes, and you're not even from Cork, you're from Kilkenny, so you're kind of a half
Kilkenny,
neighbour of mine,
yeah.
a few miles up the road.
Yeah, I'm only 5 miles down the road from you, really. Yeah. And a really other interesting thing I found out, being from Kilkenny, I didn't know the sea. I don't know the sea. Like, the sea is a different thing. It's a different language, a different rhythm. Like, you come down, you think you know it, like, but I don't know it. Like, and the first time I ever realised I was inside Kinsale or inside the sea was like, I was driving past Kinsale one day, and with my friend Dermot, actually, and he goes to me, "Oh, the tide is coming in. Oh, the tide is running, And I was going, "How do you know that?" Like, And he's going, "Well, the boats are pointing outwards." Like, it's like, I didn't know that, So the tide is coming in, the bow of the boat itself, it was going out. So that's the language. That was my key. Now I'm in.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I come from Offaly, which is the bog, and though we spent summers in Connemara, that's where I learned my Irish. But I'm a tree person. I do like the sea, but I won't go to the sea on a hot day. I prefer to walk it in the winter. But I'm a forest person, even though my father planted trees, and we played in the woods as children. And it's really interesting how different landscapes call us. Yet Connemara, it would be similar, we'll say, to West Cork. You're talking about that rugged landscape, not many trees, rocks, full of history, and
bare bones.
Bare bones, not a lot of wealth. And yet West Cork, because a lot of outsiders came who couldn't afford to live in the wealthy places, moved to the poorer places, and then brought in their crazy, artistic, organic ideas that just injects new blood and energy into a place, which I think adds to the diversity and then brings new life into a place, which is just beautiful to see.
Yeah, no, the thing, it always turns, it always turns. Like, West Cork, cheese, food, all that stuff, but it really opened up West Cork to even local people. It was great. It gave it a lift, Yeah. The wheel always turns. I love bog myself, though. I'm from the bog, I'm from Urlingford. So I'm from really good land. We're from quite good land. But my father's grandmother and my mother's people are from the other side of the parish, which is bog. There's no bog in Kilkenny, but I live just right on the tip border. And just over the border is the start of that great Midlands bog, Littleton peat factory, that runs all the way up to the Midlands. We started, and I spent my whole summers on those bogs.
Oh, did you?
I think of all the Oh yeah, no, I love the bog. Yeah. I used to get sent up to the Breens, my cousins, to spend the summer with them down the bog. I just love bog. I'm a bog man. I'm a bog man.
Well, you can't take it out of your heart.
I think my native landscape is bog. Yeah, I just love it.
I didn't appreciate it when I was young. I never felt I belonged there. I can appreciate it now because it's the bog is a very liminal place, and it's a repository of history because so much gets preserved in the bog, and in the Bora Parklands, which is near where I come from, they found years ago when they were draining some bog lake, Bronze Age settlement. And then, of course, so many things have been found in the bog bodies, the butter, other things. The bog is a place that preserves.
The bog is our memory, really, I remember years ago we cutting turf in the bog and you come down to spit, and the spit could be 15, 16 foot high, you get down to the real black stuff at the bottom, like, wow. That's, John Moriarty always said this, like, that's older than the oldest folktale in Ireland. That turf down there at the bottom, that's older than the oldest folktale in Ireland, That's old, it's 7,000 years old, that turf. Yeah.
I mean, it's mind-blowing.
I'm standing 7,000 years deep in my own land, like, when you're down in the bog. Like. It's a powerful thing.
It's a powerful thing, and it's hard to grasp it because it's like...
It is.
You're physically present and you're in the present time with your physical body in a physical place. And then you're looking at this mystery of this calendar of time, and there's no time. And it's mind-blowing. I used
to love sleeping in the bog. I'd love to go out. I used to go on a summer's day, go out and lie in the bog in the heather, and the smell of the heather, like, and all the smells and the buzzing of the bees, so many insects. It's such a richly, like, diverse landscape, especially for insects and wildflowers, Just go out and lie in the heather and go sleep in the bog. And when I was a kid, or a teenager, used to have the best dreams. I just had such deep dreams in the bog. I always remember them, Yeah.
I think
can I give you a poem, actually? Can I give you a poem?
Please do. I forgot to. Paddy's a poet, among all the other things that he does.
This is called Bog Song. This is for,
please.
The cut turf laid out in rows, black serpents trailed across the bog, and all of us stooped side by side as we turned the glistening sods and stacked them 2 on 2 until we built a tower of 8, then one to crown it off. And all about the scent of heather wafting on the breeze, and the purple silence deepened by 1,000 humming bees. Tourist buses pass the road, cameras flash as we, half proud and half ashamed, stand up and wave, glimpse our photos framed in foreign walls, relics of a vanquished age, our feet sunk into the past, our souls bog holes, deep and dark as the secrets they drown.
Oh, that's beautiful, and I can see that because I know it. Oh, that is just so beautiful, and it's so evocative. Yes, I get it. Jules Weaver said, "I bet some of the best stories are born from the bog." And somebody has a bog oak wand. I have a peat bog. A bog pine wand. And Carl says the bog preserves practice, language, and stories. Yes, beautiful. Yeah. Carl says, Ian Tuck, seeing everybody, great seeing everybody. Cunning fox in the back, tracking his way across the bog. Is that your painting?
No, it's my friend Gillian McElroy painted for me. It's she was my neighbour, and we had a fox used to live between our houses. So this is him.
Oh, yeah. Brilliant! It's lovely. It's just lovely.
I call him Fionach.
Fionach. Why do you call him Fionach? The fair fox? Well, it's
the fair fox, or just Fiona. Yeah, I got to call him Fiona, and then I realised it was Fionach. I was like Fionach.
Brilliant, lovely.
My son's name is Fiona. Yeah.
Sean, who's in Calgary, and he has a question. He said maybe for later, but he's talking about, you're talking about the boat, and he says, it says Buddha likened his teachings to a raft. How has being on the coast, the sea, informed your druidry?
That's a good question, actually. Yeah, that's a good question. And for me, the best way to answer that is to say how it's informed my poetry, I think, because poetry is a form of poetry, really, and each landscape gives voice to its spirit in similar but slightly different ways as well, and I suppose I'm from deep Midlands, from deep lands, river valleys, bogs, deep lands, you know what I mean? So I'm in Cork 20 years, and I'm living on the coast for 15, It took me about 5 years to acclimatise to it. I lived right on the coast for 5 years, and I liked it to a degree, but I did find it hard. I missed the trees, and And I miss the trees, and I miss the sheltering and the holding of trees, And I've since moved there. I moved back to a river, which is 6 miles inland, but it's on a beautiful abandoned river. It's like the River Nore. It's the same. It's like a heartland. It's like my heartland. It's like I'm home in a way, It suits me way better, But I'm very interested in the dialect of place, the grammars and the dialect of place. And for me, I'm always straining or yearning to hear the secret dialect of place, and the grammars, wind grammar, all that stuff, So my Druidry really, I call the sea a lot. I work with the sea a lot. It's become the rhythm of my days. It's become the rhythm of my days, really. It's become part of my daily practice is to go to the sea. I must go down to the sea again, to the lonely sea and sky, It just gets inside you. If I'm home now for a week in Kilkenny, even though I love it, I miss the sea. I feel the pull back. I feel that I live on the abandoned estuary. I live in an abandoned river, but I live on an estuary, and I live on the site of an old castle, Lemony Beg Castle. It's no longer there, but it was built on a bend on the river for protection, right? So it was built on the bend of the river, so I can see a mile down the river. Okay, and that river is estuary. And I think it's one of the most profound landscapes in the world in estuary because it's constantly changing. It never says still.
It's liminal. It's liminal.
It's liminal. It's completely liminal. And the window I work from looks straight on the river, And you look out sometimes, and it's like pure blue pool, beautiful, just so still, so placid, like a lake. It's wide now. It's really wide, And you come back, you go in, and you're right away. You come back in a few hours later, and it's just gone. It's just brown mud with a little ribbon of blue going through it, and there's oyster catchers and seagulls and all these birds, migratory birds, So there's the daily rhythm, and also there's the yearly rhythm as well, because the wintering birds come there as well, So there's all these different rhythms that interact with it all the time, So they become a prayer in a way as well, that kind of sustains me, but it's not necessarily what I pray to, but they become a prayer. It's that, like for me, prayer is attention is prayer, So by paying attention to the world outside me, and we all know, like, the world is not other, the world is self. So we're paying attention to our own particular rhythms as we dialogue or harmonize with the landscape we live in, And it's a prayer. It's a form of prayer, and I'm not doing the praying. The earth is doing the praying, I'm just following in and sitting into it, that rhythm, that prayer of the days, So the sea really is a huge part of my life, my poetry, my spiritual practice, my Druidry, Yeah. I would have never said that, but now, yeah, I get emotional talking about it, it's inside me.
It's so lovely to hear that. We will have more poetry, I hope.
Yeah, we probably will.
And Pat says, for me, prayer is attention with intention. And Carl says, beautiful landscape, Paddy, totally liminal, from a milk bottle to a storm, the magic of it all, landscape, rhythm, health of the land, animals and ourselves, including mental health. And then Lloyd, who's in New Zealand, he says, I can relate to what you're saying, as I'm a tree person, but find myself living next to the ocean. And Nimi says, it's carrying you in its tides. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
and you're a part of the song of life around you. We can see the energy in you. This is beautiful. So, I mean, you're getting poetic responses to what you're saying, which is really interesting.
Well, that's the way it works, isn't it? It's not me, it's the sea,
Beautiful. And Jules says that, Paddy, you've done the bog justice with the flow of your words. So people loved your poetry. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So, I mean, so there's a number of things. You're an archaeologist, and I heard you speaking a few weeks back with Moira.
Yes.
And you were talking about ring forts, and I came in late, and I'd love you to talk about ring forts, and because you were talking about why they were abandoned, and how it moved from that to townlands, and I thought it was really interesting because we have so many ring forts around. A lot have been destroyed, but we have a lot here in Kilkenny around here.
Yeah, we have a huge amount, especially in our valley there along the Nuena. I think it's actually one of the biggest concentrations of ring forts in Ireland per square mile. It's a huge. If I just in my own place at home in Kilkenny, within a square mile, it's like something like 40 ring forts.
40.
Yeah, 14, just in a square mile, like that's.
Wow.
And I've actually checked the maps, the older maps, the 1842 maps, and there's twice as many. A lot of them have been knocked,
Wow.
And it's because it was on. Is my Orv? It was the ancient route between Three Castles and Cashel. That route between Munster and Leinster was the ancient highway, like so. That was it was an important landscape, I suppose. There was a lot of wealth passing through it as well, but it also had to be protected, like so. Yeah. So it's interesting. There is a lot of ring forts, but I mean, like ring forts were like probably the most prominent landscape feature in Ireland from the Iron Age up to about 1100 when the Normans came, like, which is a long time, It's a long time. Ring forts are everywhere,
Yeah.
And ring forts, and I think that somehow they came around the same time as the townlands as well, So townlands got laid down, which was like familiar family areas of land that people farmed together. 3 or 4 or 5 families living in a clachan, But I think originally they lived in ring forts, So they were multifunctional, and I suppose like we're Irish. There probably wasn't a whole lot to do back then either. Like, so one of our favorite pastimes was raiding cattle, and we had no fields back then. It was communal land, It was like, so the cattle would go out during the day, so we needed to bring them in the evening, so the lads down the road wouldn't whip the cattle. So they used to bring them in, lock them in the ring forts. So they were multifunctional. So they were kind of in a way like mini villages, like, probably the blacksmith, like, people lived there communally, like, but they had the cattle in as well, and the sheep and the animals and all that, And that went on for a long time. And then some stage, overnight, almost, like, they seemed to just give up on ring forts. It just changed, So there's a few theories around that. And one of them is, and this is a quite recent theory, because it never really made sense. They seemed to almost like be abandoned overnight, And it was like, I think it was Gerald of Wales, around his time when he was writing, he said Ireland would be full of ring forts, and they're not living in them now, So within 100 years, they've kind of all been abandoned, and they were grown over, and they become almost like relics in the landscape, And I suppose history is different now. We kind of records. Back then, we'd probably thinking like, okay, they get grown over in 10, 15 years, like in the 50 years or 100 years, like when generations only live to 40, like it's going, well, geez, who used to live there? Do you know what I mean? Back years ago, like all our ancestors, must be the Jews, all this crack, things get landed into them, But there was always apparently this thing of stay away from ring forts. Don't ever knock a ring fort. Don't ever disturb a ring fort. And it's come down into our own time, really, especially my grandmother's time and that. Don't ever knock a ring fort. Don't disturb a ring fort. Don't cut a tree in a ring fort. If you do, bad things are going to happen. Fairies live in the ring fort. They're going to really wreak havoc, And there is lots of records of people knocking ring forts and
bad luck happening. Bad
luck happening. It seems to just entered into the cycle, entered into land, and became after the thing, But we don't have that with other archaeological monuments, Really, like. Is quite specifically ring forts, So there's an archaeologist recently, and he came up with a new theory, and he did some studies around this, And his theory was that like there was a few like anthrax outbreaks around the medieval times, And anthrax at the time was really devastating, It would actually could. So anthrax, if you don't know it, I think you probably know more about this than me, Eimear, is a airborne disease passed by cattle. And because they're keeping the cattle in the ring forts, they reckon that anthrax outbreaks happened, and then all the people might not killed as well, So like in a couple of days, everything in a ring fort might be dead, But people back then didn't really know what anthrax was, But it's just started seeing that, and because they're containing animals in ring forts as well, it's probably building and spreading, So they're thinking that well, something's happening in the ring forts. It's not really good. So I think they just actually went, this is not working. We need to destroy this. And there's a bad energy here. There's some bad juju. Something's not working right, So we need to get out of here. So they started abandoning ring forts and building them in more separate places, And then they actually started blocking up ring forts and not using them, and warning people, don't go there, And they reckon that like maybe one of the reasons why it happened was like maybe say 50 years later, people did start going back to ring forts or rooting up, and it released anthrax again because it actually stays in the ground for a long time, So it might have been cycles of people disturbing ring forest and maybe trying to move back into living them. And next thing, the anthrax, which is in the place, actually activated again and killed more people, you know. So they became a taboo, really. Like, in, you know, in folklore in folklore, the way of warning people about things is through story, you know. If you do this, something bad happens, you know, because stories pass down through time. Facts and figures don't really, you know what I mean? Like, stories transmute time, like. So that's one of the theories.
I think this is what I came into when I came into the room when you were talking about this. In the early 80s, I went to Turkana. It's a desert in the north of Kenya, and I was working in primary health there as a nurse at the time, and we dealt with anthrax.
Okay.
And it was an issue. And what I was told was that some of the men would eat the raw meat, or there were certain, I think the anthrax within the cattle in the muscle would have some kind of, tumor is the wrong word, but some kind of growth within it.
Yes,
Am I right in that?
I think so. Yes. It's like a black. The bleak goes black. It's bad meat. I think. Like, yeah.
And they would eat this because it was like something powerful or magical, or it's what men ate, and then that they would get anthrax. But I remember treating people for it.
Okay, that's so interesting.
And the next time I heard about anthrax, do you remember there was a scare? I don't know, was it in the 90s?
Yes, actually, I remember that,
where people were mailing anthrax in posts in.
Yes, anthrax. Yeah.
Was in England or in America? I can't remember. And that was the next time I heard.
America. I think it was America. Like, yeah.
Well, Carl is a doctor. He's a member of the order as well. Totally agree with the theory, Paddy. Ciliating growths with anthrax. Okay. Yeah, he's a public health person. Okay. And then Jane is the question: was anthrax initially man-made? I don't know. It was in the 90s.
I don't think so. I think it's a bacteria, isn't it? Like, so, yeah.
And Morgan's in Berlin. Maybe the magic isn't ruined. Maybe the fairies moved in as squatters after the humans left. I don't know. I have no idea. But it's a really, I hate rational explanations for magic. I really do.
Yeah, I don't like. Yeah,
but it makes so much sense. In terms of explanation, it was post 9/11 that the anthrax attack started. If there were threats, I don't know if they actually happened, but certainly there was a fear about it within the postal service. But it's a really interesting theory.
It is an interesting theory, yeah. It is. It's interesting, yeah, and it's it's interesting. All that stuff is interesting, isn't it? Like that old warning folklore in places like don't bring a hawthorn into the house and stuff. You know.
I do. I do. They allow me in. They allow me to bring it in. The interesting thing is, so many of the Rahana have been destroyed anyway, and people have had bad luck, but they haven't had anthrax, and that's an interesting one. I remember 2016, my neighbour, John Farmer, and we were talking, he said there was somebody in Kilkenny, farmer, who had destroyed, and this was a few weeks beforehand, had destroyed a rach on their land. And within a few days, he said, the man's wife there was an apparition in the yard. I mean, I'm using his language. And then she had a mental breakdown and ended up being hospitalized. And everybody in the area put that, whatever mental crisis she had, they put it down to the fact that the husband had cut through the rach. And I was interested that this was 2016, whether it was true or not, but that the belief was still there. And I think the parish priest was having none of that, but it was still there. And I thought that was fascinating.
That's fascinating, yeah. And people don't blink an eye about things like that. It seems like, it's a long time. 2016 is a long time from 1916, you know. It's still around, yeah. I think we're really lucky in Ireland as well, because a lot of the old folk medicine, the old folk magic, the old folk religion, really, and Catholicism pre-famine was really a folk religion, you know. The Catholicism, we grew up with Roman Catholicism, really only came in about 1870. You know, it was a very different form, and it came in, it was Tridentine Catholicism. Before that, it it was a folk magic, you know, and that old folk magic of working that way with ancestral spirits in the name of saints, for instance, at Holy Wells, and like they only went to mass once a year, and you know, it was a very different thing, and patrons and Holy Wells and penitential rounds and stuff. It was very different, but that really has persisted really the whole way down. Like I grew up with that, really. You probably did as well, you know. I was quite lucky growing up. I grew up in the same house as my grandmother and my grandfather, like, you know. So even though I was born in 1977, and my grandfather didn't have my dad until he was 50 years of age, like, so there was a kind of a generation missed there as well, you know. But I grew up even though I grew up in 1977, say I came of age in the 80s, but I came of age in my grandfather's house, and he was born in 1900. So I grew up in a house, and he, like, his way of thinking and his way of weaving himself into the world and being woven into the world hadn't really changed in 80 years, you know what I mean? Like, so I kind of grew up in a way in the 1920s, like, and it was magic. It was really
that's very rich. That's very rich.
It was very rich, yeah, no, and my granny as well, and she had all the old ways, you know, the fairy force and what flash lamps failing in fairy rings, and she, you know, she just had magic. She could talk and she could pray and she could just do stuff, you know. She was always in and out of hedges, and she, you know, she was amazing. And my grandfather as well. But they were from a different time, and they were from a world that was even like gone when I was young. You know what I mean? Like they were just kind of old-fashioned in their way. Like, so I kind of got the tail ends of a world that was actually even gone when I was young. You know, so I kind of it was amazing, really. You know, and I grew up in the same house. Like all my people on both sides are from the same valley. You know, from around Urningford, like, you know, my father's people and my mother's people are all from within that 10 mile square for as far back as we can remember. And we can go back 8 generations in the house that we live in now. Do you know what I mean? Like, and we probably can go back far, much, like there's cairns on the Spa Hill. Like we can, you know, that valley has been farmed for 5,000 years. In some shape or form, we've probably been there for 5,000 years, you know, and that's a deep interweaving with land, you know. That's a deep interweaving. And I grew up in the same house. When I was young, I sat around a fire with my grandfather, right? And he told me stories that his grandmother had told him at that same fire about what had happened around in the famine, because she lived through the famine.
Wow.
She lived through the famine, and he sat with her at the fire, and she told him. And I sat with the fire, and he told me. That's only one turn, 2 turns, you know.
It's beautiful. You were very lucky.
Yeah. I was very lucky. Very blessed. Yeah, very blessed. Yeah.
Carl says, just to go back to the ring forts, I love how magical they became historically. Many moms buried their unbaptized babies in mounds, believing in the magic that if the Christian God would not look after their child, the old ones would.
Kalunach, yeah, the Kalunach, yeah. I actually do.
Go on.
Oh yeah. I do land healing myself. It's a big part of my healing practice. I do a lot of land healing, you know. So I work a lot. I work with those places a lot, you know, and those energies in fairy force and ring force and the Kilunach, the old burial grounds and stuff, you know. And you can rationally explain all this stuff, but it doesn't explain it all, you know.
No.
These are real things in our landscape and real things within our psyche, and they need to be honored, and they need to be respected, and they need to be listened to, and they need to be dialogued. And when we're making decisions about how we shape and use the landscape around us, we need to hold counsel with those beings, those ancestral spirits, and those elemental forces that sustain us, you know, and have always sustained us. Like, and without whom we would not be okay, you know. So that's that wisdom is passed down a long time, and you know, it's kind of always passed down in the same shape or form. Stories about places, but they're just teaching us how to respect. I mean, and I think an interesting thing happened maybe in the 60s or the 70s, like, you know, because my grandmother and my grandfather, they just fully believed those stories. Not that they believed the stories, like they fully believed in that worldview, or that they fully believed in that understanding of the world. You know, there was a truth in it, like, you know, because like you're probably saying, I grew up in a storytelling house. You know, really, I grew up in a house full of liars. Do you know what I mean? Like, just all these men in and out of there and women, and they were just fantasists in a way. Do you know what I mean? They kind of sat around trying to outdo each other and telling of tall tales, you know, and they tell you barefaced lies. They walk down the road, "Gee, young Dial, how's it going? Jeez, you won't believe I was walking down Mare's Meadow there, and who came around the bend? The big lad, you know, the big lad. He was 17 foot tall, you know." And like, they kind of believed it as well, because they were from a different time when things weren't as fully locked into facts and figures. They understood, I think, that there's a difference between fact and truth, and sometimes the best way to express the truth about the world is to tell a story, which some people would say is a lie, but it's just a story. It's a different form. So they're from a different time, Yeah.
I think that's absolutely beautiful. Morgan says, how wonderful that you grew up with that ancestral knowledge. I often worry about the knowledge that has been lost over the past few generations. So what a privilege to have experienced that. What a blessed legacy to inherit. And then Melanie says, oh, I really understand that. We lived, I said this is happening too much. We lived with my grandparents, and both of my great-grandfathers were very much alive and active. They showed me so many things, and we lived on the farm till I was 10. That is beautiful.
And
Nimi says, extraordinary, very extraordinary. They made you the next story weaver, which is beautiful.
Yes, that was my inheritance. I'm the eldest son. I'm the eldest son of a farm, and I had to make a decision at some stage. I had always the call to be a writer, I suppose, a poet, and I always had to, I suppose, the call. I was in the land where I come from. I was born to be a king, As I said, like, my people have lived there for a long time. They're not just they're myths. My grandfathers, my fathers, they were legends. They're like Cuchulainn, you know what I mean? They had, when for me to say I'm Paddy Dial, that really means something to where I'm from, because there's a lineage,
Wow.
There's a lineage behind that. Like, there's a depth of meaning and understanding. There's a web in which I'm held. So I'm not just me. I'm Paddy Dial. That means something, you know what I mean? I remember being in town when I was younger, walking down the road, and my father would introduce me to an old man. He'd start crying.
The old man or your dad?
No, my old man would start crying because they met me.
Oh my God! Wow.
Yeah, I know. Because I was my grandfather's son. They start crying on the face, and so glad to meet you. And your grandfather was the best man I ever knew. He's my great friend, because he died early, And they would just meet me because I carried his name, I carried his name, and I was so deeply woven into that place. But I had to call to leave. It was always in me to leave, and the call to adventure, I suppose, search for the pearl of great price. I always thought I wanted something that was going to be far away. I was into the beat poets, maybe Kerouac and Ginsberg and all them when I was a teenager. I thought that the great life was in America, and New York. I was going to go to New York and be beatnik. I was going to write great big beatnik poems, and I did that. When I got there, I realized it took me a long time to realize what I was looking for was actually at home,
Back at home. And
that was my inheritance. Yeah.
Did it break your father's heart that you didn't take over the farm?
Probably, yeah. No, well, I have brothers. They all stepped in.
To do it. Yeah.
Yeah. No. It broke my heart, probably more so, to be honest with you. It broke my heart, to be honest with you. I left home and I went off to New York, and I came back, and then I came to Cork to study. And I didn't do well. The psychic rupture of leaving my home place and leaving that deeply woven web of inheritance, of being woven into land for hundreds, if not thousands of years, I didn't transplant very well. I never really made it to the other side of the river, to be honest with you. I couldn't find solid ground to stand on that had the same depth or the same holding for me. I tried lots of different things, and none of it really had, So I ended up, I fell into the abyss, really, for a long time. I had a very long period of illness, 14, 16, 17 years, I had to break down the full thing,
This is in the US?
Sorry?
All of this in the US, yeah?
No, this happened when I was in Cork. I came back from New York, and then I came to Cork. But still, in Cork was too far. I just didn't have that. I found it so weird being in a place that someone asked me my name. I said Paddy Dial, and it meant nothing to them.
Yeah.
There was nothing behind it. It meant nothing to them. I found that so strange. There was nothing behind it, like, for them. And I found I could never find that web of belonging again until recently. But for a long time I got lost. Yeah. And John, it happens a lot, actually. John McGahern, the Irish writer, writes about this a lot, because he went to England, to London, to work when he was young, when he was in college, and he worked a lot with the Irish immigrants in the building sites in London, and he called it the psychic rupture. He said that, when people live like that, in the land where I'm from, I can walk to the top of Spa Hill, I know the name of every field in that valley because I worked in them, or I hunted them with my dad, or I hunted them with my grandfather, or all the men, and I hung out in them all. I don't just know the name; I know them intimately. I know every field in that place. I know the name of every bend in every river. The whole thing. It's like my it's like it's like a poem for me, a prayer. And even when I went to New York, I was working on skyscrapers, doing steel work. 30, 40 stories. And I was loving it. I was having a good time, but my heart was broken. I was really sick. I was really lonesome. We used to start work at 8 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes we used to go down at 7 o'clock in the morning, get there before nobody else was there. And climb up to the top of those tall skyscrapers. And you probably know that. We all know from the films that shot. You're looking down and there's all the roofs of the buildings down below you. All the different shapes, squares, and rectangles. I used to go up there and I started to name the roofs of all the buildings around me: Bonacampa, Carroll's Furry Meadow, Doolin's Bosheen, Ryan's 6 Acres. I started to name them all, put the names of the fields of the home onto the names of the buildings, and I go up there and I sing them out across the rooftops of the world. It was like a prayer, a mantra, a holding for me, and somehow it kind of wove those two words together, and it held me. And it's funny because there is a quite famous shot you often see in movies. The helicopter comes in and you see like the Empire State Building and all, and I can still see some of those roofs and I go, that's Bonacampa, that's Carroll's Furry Garden.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
But John McGahern talks about that, like the psychic rupture of people who are deeply embedded in a place. They're the first of their generations. They're the first of their lineage forever, really, to leave their native place. And many of them went to London, and about half of them didn't. They just didn't do well, a lot of them. If the psychic rupture was too much, the psychic rupture was just too much. They didn't do well. In 1984, there was a study done. 1/3 of the people homeless in London was actually Irish immigrants, direct Irish immigrants. They just didn't do well. Yeah.
It's so sad, so sad. And when you think of what's happening now, the involuntarily displaced people from various parts of the world.
Yeah.
And the rupture. Nobody's talking about that because that's a psychological thing. It's
a psychological thing.
You deal with the physicals first, the basic needs, but then you end up with dealing with those ruptures down the line.
And it was a strategy. It was a strategy of colonialism as well, to move them from the native land. Something dies in them. It's like in Ireland. This is correct, isn't it? You know this. The name for a tribe of people in Irish is Tua, as in Tuatha Dé Danann. But the name for the place where they live, their tribal land, is also Tua.
Yeah.
So they said, like, the idea in our own native consciousness, the idea that the people in a place are separate just didn't come into the consideration at all. Who we are is where we're from. There's no separation. Yeah. Wow. So I lived that myself in my own life. I found that to be true. Yeah. So now I can write about it and talk about it.
So it's interesting because many of our viewers are living on occupied land, and they're not living in the home of their ancestors. How come you didn't go back to Kilkenny then after that wound? How come you stayed in Cork? Because I'm interested in how you managed to find your son.
I have a son. My son is 19, and myself and his mother split up when he was 3. So my son was here, so my son kept me here. And also I did that thing. I left home and I went to travel to the other side of the river. It took me 20 years to get to the other side of the river, but I needed to do that for myself. You know what I mean? I just needed to do that. And I also needed to find a deeper ground. And the ground I found was much deeper because the ground fell from under me. And when you fall down into the abyss and you fall for a long time, and then you actually hit something, and that's rock bottom. And then you realize there is something there, that's the divine ground or whatever. Like there is something there. And then you can rest for a few minutes because, okay, then you can maybe start to think about going back up, and have to stay there for a long time in those places and get to know the territory and get to know the beings who live there and to make friends with them, and to learn how to learn the territory, learn the maps and to find out and then to realize, well, I'm not the first one to end up here, This is an old story, And then when I realized that, then I found my real ancestors in a way, Oh, now different people who are talking to me, Hildegard bring in all, the mystics, the people who have, like, they became my brother and my kin, my spirit ancestors, I suppose, and then you pick up on that lineage and you start to tread a new path, and that's another sort of support comes. And also, because it's interesting for me because I grew up with such a profound sense of connection for people in place. I mean, we live so close to the earth, I grew up in a house with a concrete floor, big old fireplace, no running water, no toilet, nothing like that. We lived so close to the earth. We grew all our own food. We hunted, we shot, we foraged. We just lived so close to the earth, And I actually, for some reason, went away from that, and having had known such profound connection, and when that was broken, I understand such profound disconnection, like to a point where I was so unwell I couldn't leave my house. I was disconnected from the outside world, everything. I was just really I was a shell. I was almost dead, for years. And I somehow, when you spend a lot of time in that space, when there's just silence and the stillness and nothing, you realize that there is the space is not empty. There is another level of ancestry there as well, another level of connection to a deeper ancestry, other beings who support you, and who are always connected to you, So you have to sometimes experience absolute disconnection to find absolute connection, and then that's a deeper web that holds you. And then when you come back up, you can all those different webs hold you, I think. And then this is when I found Druidry, actually. This is when I came to Druidry, Yeah. And I was really unwell at the time as well, and I spent years where I could only walk about 100 yards a week, But the one thing I could do, I realized, okay, I need to make it. This needs to be my job, okay. I'm gonna go out and lie in the ditch, okay. That's the only thing I can do, and I think, because I was when I was young, I had lots of talents, lots of gifts, and everything. It could have been this, could have been that, could have been all these things. You know what I mean? It could have been all these things. I was going to be a doctor. My parents wanted to be this and that. All I ever wanted to do was lie in a ditch, because I grew up in ditches. And I just grew up in ditches, like some, and I were like, okay. It came in my life that the only thing I was able to do was the only thing that I ever really wanted to do. So I said, you know what? In a way, this is a gift. I'm going to go lay in my ditch, right? I'm going to make a job of it. Like, I get up in the morning at 8 o'clock and I make a flask and I make a packed lunch and I go out at 9 o'clock and I lie in the ditch at 5 o'clock in the evening. And I just lay there for a couple of years every day, and that reweave me back into belonging, And that's where I found Druidry, in that ditch. Yeah.
So, because I mean, you're obviously just lying on the earth. I mean, it's what a connection. So
you're lying in the earth, in a ditch. You're lying in the earth because you're in the ditch,
actually,
and you're woven, and it's the web, the filaments that bind you. And
so when you say that's how you found Druidry, I mean, what was the thought? I mean, how did you find out about Obod, or were you thinking of Druidry from another source?
I was also getting a lot of healing at this stage as well. I had to get some help. I got a lot of help, and I had always been into the Druids, I suppose. I studied Celtic studies in college as well, so it was always there for me. And interestingly, anyway, it's a long story. I don't have time for it now. I went to Cod Brannigan, a friend of yours.
Yeah. Who's a member of the order also?
Was a member of the order, when I was 40 years of age, a woman walked into my life. She literally walked in my door and said, "I heard you're not well. I want to help you." And she became my partner for a while, and it was a real help. Sometimes that happens, And she was there one day. Goes, "There's a woman in Wexford. I keep hearing her name. I think her name was Cod, and I think you need to go see her." So I asked around, anybody know a woman in Wexford called Cod, and turns out her was Cod Brannigan. So I got driven up to Cod Brannigan and we had a chat, and Cod sat me down and did Cod's thing, and she told me I should check out being Obod. So it'd be perfect fit for me. And here I am, 8 years later.
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah. And I can't remember, I'm coming home from that drive in Wexford. I just felt like, I came home.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Jane, there's a message here. Jane says, "Paddy, you're a blessing for carrying the truth and stories of the ancestors, and the future will celebrate you for it." And it's, I just want to, Sean's in Canada, we might be able to rationally explain occurrences. We can't always rationally explain the effect they have on us. Still magic. That is just beautiful. So, you have another poem, I take it.
Yeah, I have lots of poems. Let me see. I might do one about the estuary, actually, because we were talking about the estuary.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can remember it. I watched the tide come in. The estuary turned from mud flats. No, I watched the tide come in. The estuary turned from mud flat to water pool. Fish break its surface with silver strokes, as if the world is writing melodies in a script they have not learned to read. A heron screeches, and thistle seeds drift by like whispers on the breeze. My ears strain to take the given note. I strike a tune on the fiddle of my tongue. Each leaping fish, each dipping branch, an octave. My heart an estuary, swelling up with song. I watch the tide go out. The estuary shrink to a silver thread. Oyster catchers pluck worms, and boats no longer bob, but lie instead like coffins in the mud. The heron rises, a hieroglyph against the sky, and having lately learned to read the script, I wonder why I've never heard my shadow sing, and what other gifts lie strangled in the dark. This mud that's left when the tide has trickled out, alive with worms and shells, with cracked and broken things, dreams buried in the cracked ground of my heart.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Yeah. Wonderful. Wow. Do you have any more poetry?
I have loads of poems, You want a poem? Let's do a poem about stories.
Okay, do a poem about stories.
Maybe someday when the weather takes a turn for the worse, we'll seek shelter somewhere beneath a tree or a rock or a prayer or an old tale told to children. Maybe someday these old tales will wake us again. And in the words of an old song the grandmothers sang, we'll find a door to a world that is ever young. Maybe then we'll remember to sing, and our singing will carry us home. Maybe then the earth will be our garden again, and we won't feel so lost and alone. And our motorways will become folktales, and our toll bridges become troll bridges, leading through a forest to a cavern where we find the wisdom of old. Beauty is a song well sung, and truth a tale well told.
Oh. Carl says, so evocative. Aontaker fad paddy. The words flow from you like silk. Now, does he make his poetry available anywhere? Do you publish? Do you have a blog?
My website is under reconstruction at the minute, so that'll be up soon. It's paddydial.ie. It'll be back up in the next couple of weeks.
Hey, Paddy. DOYLE.ie.
Yeah.
Okay, it's coming.
But I like just doing gigs and live stuff. To be honest with you, I'll have a book out the next year as well. Hopefully.
Oh, very good. Let me know. Okay.
I will. Yeah.
Oh, that's just absolutely beautiful. Brought tears to my eyes. Truth, a tale well told. So, just stunning. The lovely comments from you. So beautifully. I'm there. Such love. Beautifully written poems and amazed how you can just recite them. A true bard. That's from Morgan. Yeah. So, yeah, because a lot of people don't. Poets aren't good at reading their own poetry, or they don't know it. These poems feed my heart. Thank you.
Yeah.
Your face comes alive with your words. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
And I loved how musical that poetry was. You could feel the magic of the land weaved in. Do you have another one before we finish?
I'm going to, because you say there about remembering poems, I'm going to do one for my grandfather, because I learned poetry on my grandfather's knee. My grandfather I come from kind of bards, but they never wrote, you know what I mean? Because bardry is a faculty of mind.
An oral tradition.
It's a faculty of mind, being able to remember stuff. And I just have it. My dad has it, my grandfather has it, and my son has it as well, It's just in us. And when I was young, my grandfather, every night before I go to bed, I'd have to get up on his knee, and he'd have to do all the nursery rhymes for me, and little by blue can blow your horn, all that crack, And he loved three things. He loved poetry, just loved poems, He loved nursery rhymes, and then he loved those kind of rebel songs, Galloping Hogan and the Galty Mountain Boy and all them, And then he had loads of kind of local rhymes that I had remembered from around, Mikey Dunphy up the hill, all that kind of crap, small local rhymes. Now, he'd do all those rhymes, but he wouldn't let me go to bed and I do them all back to him, you know. So he taught me how to be a poem, how to remember, and then he taught me. He really gets into you, you know. Your brain gets shaped a certain way, you know. So I'll do it for him, you know. And he was a hilarious man. He was really funny, but he was also really serious at a time when politics is quite serious, you know. Fine Gael, Fine Fall, all that crack, you know. This is a little bit political at the end, but it's politics from 100 years ago, so we don't mind that, you know. Your knees bouncing to the rhythm of your breath, you pour your rhymes into me. Jack Taps skinning his goat and Little Boy Blue blowing his horn as he rode with the galloping Hogan to ambush a trainload of William Whites, and Humpty Dumpty up in the hill of grain, and he painting pictures of the Janet in the throes of her morning ablutions. For an hour we'd ride the sovereign kingdoms of your mind, where wolves roam the craggy glens and outlawed rebels drive the Saxon stranger from our land. We hear the banshee crying in Doolin's Bosheen, the thump of Mikey Goosey Gander throwing Mikey Dunphy down the stairs, and in the names of local fields, we glean lost highways, travelled by the ancient kings. Old men cried when they met me in the town, cried for that day in 33, when blue shirts dared to march along our road. No passaran, you roared as you charged out the door with your Fenian heart and your blackthorn sick, and you drove those fascist bastards to the hills of Tullaroan. That's my grandfather.
That is just brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
Angela says, my granny was good with riddles. We'd be trying to work them out for hours. And Jane says, a true bard indeed. And your eyes twinkled when you told your stories and poems. Absolutely brilliant. That's cradle songs. I just love your weaving in, you know, the rebel bits and with Humpty Dumpty going up the hill. It's a beautiful poem. Absolutely. And so evocative. Beautiful. So you're getting lots of applause here. So it's been such a joy talking. We could talk, you know, more and more and more and more. We could go on for hours, but it's getting late. Yeah, it's brilliant. So I let you say good night to everybody, or good afternoon, good morning.
Thanks everybody for turning up tonight, and thanks for listening to me and to Eimear as well, you know, and sure, send you all blessings from the sea and from the estuary and from the bogs and from Kinsale and from Bandon as well, and all the good places of this earth. Take care, good night, and God bless.
Brilliant. The bard weaving, I could listen to Paddy and his words of poetry all day. That's from Liz in Wyoming. And then Nimi says, I could listen to Paddy forever. And if Sean says, if I ever have the good fortune to end up a king of somewhere, you'll be joining my court as my official bard. I need someone to verbally thrash my critics and enchant everyone else. That's lovely. Brilliant. This is great. That's brilliant. What a wonderful conversation. I agree. So I'm going to send you back to the green room and we'll talk. We can look at the comments when we go offline.
Fine.
So listen, thank you all for joining me this evening. And he is a fabulous storyteller and a great poet and so knowledgeable, a naturally gifted bard. Yeah. Fabulous story. He is absolutely. Hi, Rhiannon. I didn't say hello to you earlier. So I wish you all a blessed Lunasa. I hope your early harvest is nourishing and that you have the patience to wait for the remainder of the harvest, and may you be blessed by Talshu, Lou's foster mother, and her energy, and Lou himself. I'm going to be taking the month of August off, as I always do, so I will be back again in the autumn and September with another Fireside Chat. So until then, have a wonderful evening, afternoon, morning, or if you're watching this as a recording. So thank you all. So be well. And Banachti, Luna Sajiv Galera, and sorry, Lloyd, I haven't forgotten you. Banachti, Imol Jivsa, what was it? Lachrina Tushkartuk in the Southern Hemisphere. A blessed Imolk to all of you down at the other end of the world. So until we meet again, Slán go fóill.